The human brain was not built to resist this. It was built to seek reward, avoid pain, and repeat whatever made it feel good. That system kept us alive for hundreds of thousands of years. It also made us extraordinarily easy to hack. Every drug ever used, from your morning coffee to the most dangerous substance on Earth, works by slipping into that same architecture and pulling the same levers. Some pull gently. Some pull until something breaks. What follows is every major substance, explained honestly. Not what they feel like in movies, what they actually do. The brain runs on chemistry, not metaphorically, literally. Every thought you've ever had, every feeling of joy, dread, or love was the result of chemicals moving between neurons. And at the center of all of it is a system designed to do one thing: reward you. Find food? Reward. Connect with others? Reward. Survive something difficult? Reward. The brain releases dopamine, and you feel it. That sensation is the signal to do it again. That's the architecture every drug on this list exploits. 3 chemicals matter most here. Dopamine drives motivation and pleasure. It's the brain's way of saying, "This mattered, remember this." Serotonin regulates mood, sleep, and emotional stability. The quiet baseline that makes ordinary life feel manageable. GABA is the brain's brake pedal, slowing neural activity down and producing calm. Every substance that follows pulls on one or more of these levers. Some flood the system, some block the signals that slow it down, some do both simultaneously. The brain responds to all of it the same way. It recalibrates. That's tolerance. When the brain detects an unusual surge of any chemical, it compensates by reducing its own sensitivity. It produces fewer receptors. It adjusts. Over time, what once produced a strong effect produces a weaker one. More is needed to feel the same thing. And when the substance disappears, the recalibrated brain doesn't return to normal immediately. It's left depleted, waiting for something that isn't coming. That gap is withdrawal, not weakness, not failure. Just biology doing exactly what it was designed to do. This recalibration isn't a flaw. It's the brain being efficient. Addiction is what happens when that efficiency gets pointed at something that doesn't stop asking for more. Every drug that follows moves through the same arc. The onset, when the substance enters the bloodstream and the brain begins to change. The peak, when the effect is fullest and the chemistry is most disrupted. And the come down, when the drug fades and the brain is left accounting for what it spent. That structure repeats across every substance on this list. The names change, the mechanism doesn't. Caffeine. Caffeine is a stimulant found in coffee, tea, soda, and energy drinks. It's the most widely consumed psychoactive substance on Earth, used by billions of people every single morning. Most don't think of it as a drug. That's the first sign it's working. When caffeine enters the bloodstream, it travels to the brain and blocks a chemical called adenosine. Adenosine builds up throughout the day and signals fatigue. It's the brain's way of saying, slow down, rest is needed. Caffeine fits into adenosine's receptors without activating them. The signal never arrives. Your neurons keep firing. Your heart rate rises slightly. You feel alert, focused, capable. But caffeine doesn't generate energy. It borrows time. The adenosine keeps accumulating behind the blockade. When caffeine wears off, it floods back all at once. That's the crash, not caused by caffeine leaving, but by everything it was holding back arriving simultaneously. With regular use, the brain compensates. It builds more adenosine receptors to restore balance. Now you need caffeine just to reach baseline. Not awake, just functional. Skip it and the headaches start. The fatigue is heavier than before. We call it needing your morning coffee. Pharmacologically, it's mild physical dependence dressed up as routine. We joke about needing caffeine to function, but that's withdrawal disguised as personality. The mechanism is the same across every substance on this list. The scale is just smaller. Nicotine. Nicotine is a fast-acting stimulant found in tobacco and vapes. It reaches the brain within seconds of being inhaled, triggering a release of dopamine that feels clean, controlled, and brief. The onset is smooth, a slight sharpening of thought, a loosening of tension, a quiet sense that things are manageable again. That's the trap, and it begins at first use. As dopamine fades, usually within minutes, a low-level discomfort sets in. Tension returns, focus drifts, the craving begins, not for pleasure exactly, but for relief. Each cigarette or puff doesn't produce a new high so much as it erases the withdrawal the previous one created. The discomfort nicotine relieves is the discomfort nicotine caused. The calm it delivers is simply the restoration of a baseline it already destroyed. Over time, the brain's dopamine system recalibrates entirely around nicotine's presence. Natural dopamine release weakens. Without the substance, everything feels slightly flat, slightly harder. Physically, it constricts blood vessels, weakens the heart, and erodes lung function with every hit. Mentally, it's worse. Nicotine convinces the brain that calm is something it can only borrow. People who quit often describe weeks of feeling as if something essential is missing. It isn't. What's gone is the chemical that was manufacturing the need. Nicotine doesn't relax you. It just resets withdrawal and calls that peace. Alcohol. Alcohol is a depressant, meaning it slows down your brain and nervous system. It's present at parties, dinners, celebrations, and grief. The one substance society treats not just as acceptable, but as expected. People drink to loosen up, to connect, or simply because everyone else does. Once it enters the bloodstream, alcohol disrupts the way the brain communicates with itself. At the onset, that disruption feels like relief. Warmth spreads through the body. Thoughts quiet down. You feel more open, more social, more at ease with the room. For a while, alcohol seems like the chemical key to human connection. Then comes the peak. Judgment starts to fade. Emotions rise and grow louder. You talk faster, laugh harder, and cross lines you wouldn't sober. Balance slips, coordination softens. But the brain, still drowning in distorted signals, is convinced everything's fine. That's the illusion alcohol creates. It slows your thinking while persuading you that your thinking is sharp. Eventually, the come-down arrives. The warmth turns heavy. The buzz turns blurry. Hours later, you're dehydrated, nauseous, hollowed out. Sleep is poor and unrestorative. The next morning, brain chemistry crashes completely. Everything that felt easy now feels like it cost something. The hangover isn't punishment. It's the bill. Alcohol is addictive in quiet, familiar ways. The more frequently you drink, the more the brain expects it to relax. Over time, you're not drinking for pleasure. You're drinking to feel normal. It damages the liver, weakens the heart, and erodes self-control. A chemical that makes you feel alive while slowly dulling everything that makes you human. Cannabis. Cannabis is a psychoactive drug made from the marijuana plant. The main active chemical is THC, which interacts with the brain's endocannabinoid system, the network that regulates mood, memory, and perception. When THC enters the bloodstream and reaches the brain, it binds to receptors that normally respond to natural chemicals called anandamides, molecules the brain produces to help maintain calm and balance. The onset is gentle. Time softens. Senses sharpen and everything around you, music, light, texture, conversation, feels slightly warmer, slightly more alive. At the peak, creativity can expand and calm can deepen, or perception can tip into confusion and paranoia depending on dose and mindset. Colors feel richer. Ideas seem more connected than they did a moment ago. Music sounds like it has more layers. As the come-down settles in, thought slows, speech drifts, and tiredness arrives like slow fog. Cannabis is mildly addictive, mostly psychologically. Regular use can dull motivation, disrupt short-term memory, and in heavier doses, trigger anxiety or panic. It changes how the brain defaults to rest. With regular use, natural calm starts to feel insufficient in comparison, and the brain gradually reorients toward needing a chemical trigger to reach it. It's often called harmless, but it quietly reshapes how your brain rewards relaxation until stillness without it stops feeling like enough. That shift is gradual and almost invisible until it isn't. The substances that follow run the same mechanism on a much larger scale. The damage scales with the hijack: cocaine. Cocaine is a powerful stimulant derived from coca leaves. It's most commonly snorted as a white powder, though it can be smoked or injected. Once in the bloodstream, it floods the brain with dopamine by blocking your body's ability to reabsorb it. The dopamine accumulates. The brain drowns in pleasure signals all at once. The onset is almost instant. A rush of euphoria, energy, and confidence. Your heart pounds. Your pupils widen. Your thoughts feel electric, brilliant, perfectly formed. Every move feels precise. Every idea feels important. You feel untouchable. For a moment, the world reshapes itself around you. At the peak, the brain's reward system is burning through its entire fuel supply in a single go. That clarity and confidence feel real, because neurologically, they are. But the system cannot sustain it. The high is sharp and extremely short. Within minutes, dopamine levels crash and the come-down slams in. Anxiety rises, mood drops, exhaustion hits. You crave more just to feel baseline again. Cocaine is highly addictive. The brain quickly learns to connect it with pleasure, motivation, and control. But it's an illusion built on debt. Each hit rewires you to need another. Over time, it damages the heart, constricts blood vessels, and erodes the brain's ability to generate joy without external chemical help. MDMA. MDMA, better known as ecstasy or Molly, is a synthetic stimulant and hallucinogen, usually swallowed as a pill at parties or clubs. The chemical floods the brain with serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin simultaneously, the trio responsible for happiness, reward, and connection. As the onset begins, warmth spreads through the body. Music sounds richer. Touch feels electric. You feel deeply, completely connected to friends, to strangers, to the room, to the moment. The brain is running on maximum empathy. At the peak, serotonin levels spike and the world feels perfect. You dance for hours. You speak without hesitation. You feel infinite and open and entirely unguarded. Strangers feel like people you've known for years somehow. But MDMA burns through the brain's serotonin supply faster than it can replenish. Within hours, the come-down starts. Emotion drains out, replaced by emptiness, sadness, and a heavy exhaustion. The high leaves as suddenly as it arrived. Used repeatedly, MDMA damages the neurons that release serotonin, making natural happiness harder to reach over time. It's called a love drug because it makes you feel connected to everyone. But when it's over, you understand that the connection was chemical, not real, and the brain is left paying for it. Opioids. Opioids are painkillers derived from the opium poppy or manufactured synthetically. Medically, they appear as morphine or oxycodone. On the street, as heroin or fentanyl. However they enter the body, they work identically, attaching to opioid receptors in the brain, blocking pain, and flooding the system with a deep, spreading euphoria. The onset brings warmth, comfort, and profound relief. A heavy calm that feels like safety itself. Pain disappears. Stress evaporates. Your body melts into stillness. It's not an energetic high. It's like sinking into the world's softest blanket and finally being allowed to stop. Every muscle in your body releases. The mind goes quiet. At the peak, everything slows. Breathing shallows. The heartbeat softens. Thoughts drift without landing anywhere. It's bliss, but dangerously close to unconsciousness. Then comes the come down, and it's brutal. Anxiety, muscle pain, nausea, sweating, insomnia. Every nerve in your body screams for the drug again. That's withdrawal. It doesn't just make you want more, it makes life feel genuinely unbearable without it. Opioids are among the most addictive substances known. They rewire the brain's survival circuitry so completely that the drug starts to feel as necessary as air. The warmth they give at the beginning is the same warmth they strip from everything else in life. Methamphetamine. Methamphetamine is a powerful stimulant that floods the brain with dopamine and adrenaline simultaneously, supercharging everything at once. It's smoked, swallowed, snorted, or injected. Within seconds, it hits like a current through the entire nervous system. The onset explodes. Your heart races, your mind sharpens. Every sense turns to maximum volume. You feel awake, unstoppable, invincible. Thoughts move faster than words. Sleep feels completely optional. At the peak, confidence becomes euphoria. Motivation becomes obsession. The brain is burning through its entire dopamine reserve in a single session, spending months of natural supply in an afternoon. Then comes the come down, and it's severe. Energy vanishes completely. The mind crashes into exhaustion, depression, and paranoia. The world turns gray, slow, and empty. That chemical hangover can stretch for days. Meth is extremely addictive. Each high rewires the brain to crave the rush while dismantling the system that creates natural pleasure. Over time, it causes severe weight loss, hallucinations, and permanent memory damage. The energy meth gives feels infinite, until you realize it was never yours. It was borrowed from your future self, and repayment starts the moment the high ends. LSD. LSD is a hallucinogen, a chemical that doesn't create visions so much as it rewires the process by which reality is assembled. It's usually taken on tiny paper squares placed on the tongue. The amount needed is microscopic, measured in millionths of a gram. Once absorbed, LSD binds to serotonin receptors, particularly one called 5-HT2A, which governs how the brain shapes perception and filters sensory input. The onset begins subtly. Patterns start moving. Colors intensify. Edges seem softer or more defined than they should be. It's not hallucination in the clinical sense. It's more like reality itself begins to breathe. As if the world you always assumed was fixed is just one interpretation among many. At the peak, which can last for hours, time loses meaning. Your sense of self, the part of your mind that maintains the boundary between you and everything else, dissolves. You might feel connected to the universe, euphoric, terrified, or all three simultaneously. Emotions become physical. Music feels like it has texture. The line between thought and sensation blurs until everything seems like a single continuous experience. There's no inner narrator left to interpret it. For some, it's the most profound experience of their lives. For others, the most frightening. Then the come down arrives, slow and gentle, like returning from somewhere very far away. Reality rebuilds itself piece by piece. Some people describe the aftermath as a reset, clarity, emotional openness, a different perspective on familiar problems. Others feel disoriented and raw for days. LSD isn't physically addictive, but it's deeply unpredictable. The same dose can produce bliss or terror depending on mindset and setting. It can trigger lasting anxiety or flashbacks long after the experience ends. LSD opens the mind, but it doesn't always close the door cleanly behind it. Psilocybin. Psilocybin, better known as magic mushrooms, is a hallucinogen found in certain fungi. It's eaten raw, brewed as tea, or taken as capsules. Once consumed, the body converts psilocybin into psilocin, which binds to serotonin receptors in a way that loosens the brain's usual filters on perception. The onset starts within 30 to 60 minutes. Senses sharpen, patterns shimmer at the edges. Laughter comes easily. Music feels layered and alive. You become aware of your breathing, your body, the texture of everything around you. At the peak, perception shifts completely. Colors pulse. Time stretches and compresses. Some people describe feeling a profound connection to nature, memory, or something larger than themselves. What some call enlightenment, others call chaos. It's like the mind dissolves into something bigger than it usually allows itself to be. And what's revealed there depends entirely on what you brought with you. As the come down arrives, thoughts gradually settle. The world slowly reassembles. Many feel peaceful, emotionally open, or gently reconfigured. Others emerge confused or shaken, carrying anxiety that lingers for days. The line between a good trip and a difficult one is often thinner than most people expect going in. Psilocybin isn't physically addictive. It doesn't hijack dopamine the way stimulants do, but it's powerful in ways that aren't always visible. It can help people break stubborn patterns of thought. It can also, in the wrong conditions, trigger panic or psychosis. Mushrooms don't show you something new. They pull back the curtain on what's already inside. Ketamine. Ketamine is a dissociative anesthetic originally developed for surgery. In small doses, it's now used medically to treat depression. Recreationally, it's snorted as a powder or injected for its out-of-body effects. It works by blocking glutamate, the brain's primary excitatory messenger, which disrupts how sensory information gets processed and organized. The onset is fast. Within minutes, the world starts to feel distant and muffled. Your own body becomes unfamiliar. At the peak, what users call the K-hole, perception detaches completely. You might feel like you're floating above yourself, watching your life from somewhere outside it. Time stops making sense. The body is present, but you are somewhere else entirely. Some find it peaceful, a rare silence from the constant noise of self-awareness. Others find it terrifying. As awareness slowly returns, speech reconnects, and vision clears. But the world remains foggy for a while. There's an unusual calm, like thinking through water. Ketamine isn't classically addictive. But tolerance builds quickly, and heavy use causes memory loss, bladder damage, and a deep emotional flatness. It separates body from mind, and sometimes they don't fully meet again. Benzodiazepines. Benzodiazepines, benzos, are sedatives prescribed for anxiety, panic disorders, and insomnia. They work by enhancing GABA, the brain chemical that slows neural activity and produces calm. As a pill, the onset feels like relief arriving from the inside. Muscles loosen, thoughts quiet. The sharp edges of the world go soft. At the peak, everything feels distant and manageable. Worry fades. Sleep comes easily. The relentless noise inside your head stops for a while. But as the come down begins, drowsiness turns to confusion. Memory slips. Emotion flattens. For people living with severe anxiety, this relief feels medicinal and necessary, and it is, until it isn't. With frequent use, the brain forgets how to be calm without them. Tolerance builds fast, meaning higher doses are required to reach the same quiet. Stopping suddenly can trigger anxiety, tremors, or seizures, a withdrawal more dangerous than almost anything else on this list. Benzos quiet your mind, but silence, it turns out, can be as addictive as any stimulant. Every substance described here works because the brain is built to be influenced. It has receptors designed to respond to chemical signals. It has reward pathways designed to reinforce behavior. It has systems that adapt to whatever conditions it finds itself in. Every drug on this list slips into that architecture and pulls something. Dopamine, serotonin, glutamate, GABA. The brain responds the only way it knows how. It adjusts, recalibrates, and begins to expect. That expectation is the core of every addiction, not the pleasure, not the escape. Just the brain's insistence that the world it has learned to navigate requires this particular chemical to function. The line between medicine and poison, between habit and addiction, between use and dependence, is almost never about the substance. It's about frequency, volume, and what the brain decides it can no longer do without. Every drug on this list was something the brain accepted. The question that remains long after the last dose is whether it will ever fully let go.